Good evening. We have received a truly good evening on this, toward the end of the third full day of our Generosity Sesshin, where we've been exploring the joy of generosity and the unity of giving and receiving and gift. So many versions fit into that category when we're thinking about categorically about our lives. All Dharma centers depend on generosity, the giving of so many resources, and the good use of resources that are donated. Resources of wealth, time, effort, and commitment, great determination, all go into developing a center for our beloved community. And when we look at generosity and how it functions in the world, how it's intrinsic to the world, the entire world is a beloved community. In this practice, we take it upon ourselves to be concerned for the entire beloved community, beyond our own local. But what we directly experience is only ever local. So we practice, we develop a keen interest in what is right around us, before us, within us, as participants of this beloved community. And we appreciate the importance of awakening to our awareness and governing awareness in the direction of seeing what is needed and providing to the best of our ability what is needed. So perhaps now on this third full day of Sesshin, we've been already becoming more sensitive to the unity of all things in this non-dual universe. I love that phrase. It's so grand. Becoming aware of the unity of all things in this non-dual universe, but it's a very apt description of how we are not separate. We're not separate. And when we really directly experience the truth of that, in our own direct experience, it's not an idea. It's the enactment of generosity. We experience it in even one breath. When we go beyond the word for it and just into the body this breath. Breath is a noun, but the direct experience is the awareness of the verbing of it, the liveliness of it, the gratitude you can feel when we have available to us a full, fresh breath. We taste the flavor of the direct realization as the form of a breath emerges. This breath, the experience of this breath can't be measured. It's alive. It's our constant companion. From the very first breath taken by a baby, the cry of the new baby, the relief that a parent feels hearing the cry of a baby whose lungs are in good working order, who's a little outraged by the sudden change of the environment. So one of the ways that our breath happens is when we're relieved. Relief is importantly a breath. At birth, during every moment of a life, and then that last breath, I'll never forget the sound of my mother's last breath as she leapt. It almost felt rather joyful. She leapt. Out it went. And we're there at our children's first breath, and they're with us, if we're lucky, at our last breath. So this breath marks a life. Generosity. Someone asked the Buddha, how is a householder accomplished in generosity? We're all householders, just about, all of us. Maybe, actually, yes, all of us, not just about. And he said, a householder dwells at home with a mind devoid of stinginess, devoted to charity, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, delighting in giving and sharing, delighting in relinquishment. that is a wonderful freedom that we all have as a possibility for ourselves to be able to relinquish what is no longer needed, what we think we must have, relinquishing some fixed idea about who we are, who somebody else is, or how the things in the world are going to turn out tomorrow, next year, in a decade, in a century. We have this incredible gift of being able to think and imagine and create. And these are all aspects of the generous universe. Buddhism teaches there are 4 kinds of gifts. We can give material goods, such as food, clothing, or money. Tonight is a night of trick or treat. You may hear the doorbell ringing right now if you're at home. And lots of little bodies in costumes waiting eagerly for your handout. It can be, we can give generously or we can give in a miserly way. Looking like we're giving and actually we're withholding. As in a stiff formal hug, which is expected of us when we meet Aunt Minnie on Thanksgiving, but we really don't like her. What if we were to actually give her a loving hug? So generosity really can demand of us in a lot of situations just really relinquishing our attitude about what is okay, what we like, what we don't like, and being willing to have a full, wholehearted experience to find out. We call it reality testing. And sometimes there are big surprises when we let ourselves do that. Another kind of giving is protection to those in danger and shelter in times of crisis. And I think one of the reasons why many of us feel such tremendous pain about the situation in Gaza, Israel, Lebanon, Ukraine, Yemen, Sudan, to name just a few places right now, where the needs are huge. The source of pain at being so impotent, so unable to give, feeling so unable to help. And so that's also part of appreciating how essential generosity is to our well-being, to be able to help. We can look into even small ways to help, even at a great distance. And much more locally, we give kindness, compassion, empathy. We listen, we visit, we notice. There's a family across the street from me. They need some help sometimes with the kids. They need time to just go for a walk without the kids. You know, so there's a lot of opportunities for noticing and offering. But the most important, perhaps, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say it comparatively, but potent is offering the teachings of the Dharma, offering the Dharma, sharing wisdom and spiritual guidance. And we can do that directly and indirectly. Directly, when we come to the Zen Center and we're all really wholeheartedly participating in the activities of the Sangha and maintaining the center in a way that makes it welcoming and supportive of practice. But we also offer the Dharma by just the quality of our presence out in the world. We go to the store, we go to work, with our family members, our neighbors. We're always expressing the Dharma when we are awake to it. And the expression is always an expression of generosity and love, caring. Since we're always present, we can always give. What are we receiving? What are we receiving right now? That wonderful practice that Shanae reminds us to undertake this week. The practice that Chosen Roshi brought forth. Chosen Roshi, who was an incredibly generous teacher, teaches so many ways to practice, so many ways to renew our heart, so many ways to encourage ourselves and others. And also last night when Shanae said, I just was reminded I had forgotten all about this wonderful acts of kindness that are done anonymously. And the encouragement to do that. Pay for somebody's coffee. Offer somebody who's waiting outside Market of Choice because they live on the street and they'd like a handout. Offer them enough for a full meal. There are just so many times when it's a joyful practice to say yes rather than no. And it reminds me of years ago I was involved with a project called Youth Volunteer Corps here. And for a couple of years, it was for service learning for middle school and high school kids. For a couple of years, we put in a lot of work to get there's very little money available for stuff like that. So, but we managed it, and it was very, very encouraging. But we thought, okay, we need to get that into the city government, so that we don't have to every spring be spending hours and hours and hours trying to get scarce funds. So we went to the Parks and Rec, and at the time, Rennie Moy was the head of Parks and Rec, and we told him about this project, and he laughed and he said, yes! And we were like blown away, because we had just heard no, 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 in so many places we'd gone. And he said, one of the joys of my life is that my job is to say yes with Parks and Rec. I thought that was quite wonderful. It's very inspiring. Touched a lot of kids' lives, and continues to, actually, it's still around. So, we always have opportunities to be generous in unexpected ways and creative ways. When we're relaxed and attentive, living with a faith in the wholeness of life and the possibilities, when we cultivate patience with circumstances, and we're renewed again and again by recognizing how supported and receiving, we're on the receiving end of things, we naturally rejoice in offering whatever we have. We offer whatever we have. An overflowing heart, a wish to be part of something worthy of love and respect. All of this helps us recognize what we have to share. Shows us what we have to offer. Whatever we receive helps to shape what we have to offer. No matter how much, how little. So this brings to mind a fellow who was for years a practitioner at Art of Wisdom in Portland named Barry. Barry was a pretty bright, but he had fairly pronounced mental illness issues. And he lived on the street most of the time, although he was taken in by some of the members of Art of Wisdom fairly regularly to get a shower and do laundry and get a warm night's sleep. But Barry was very, very concerned about the state of the world, and you could count on him to show up at all kinds of demonstrations and hold very strong opinions about current events. And also, he educated himself a lot about issues. And so that was something that he could offer, even though he had no resources other than that. And one day he came to, when Heart of Wisdom opened, there was a dinner, a celebrating dinner, and he wanted to bring something, and what he brought was a big clump of straws that he had been collecting. He said, "This is my collection, and I offer it to the Dharma." And I was just, I think I said to him, "Barry, you show the way. You're showing me the way, you know. There's always a way." So this clear, bright, open heart mind, generous heart mind, that lies within the spaciousness of the universe, cannot be found at a distance, can always be found right here. Concept of space and time we only ever experience as right here and right now. Directly. So generosity is marked by the direct experience. So I always come back now to my favorite Tibetan teachers, Longchenpa, who was a 14th century yogi in the Nyingma lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And one of the things that he did was he pointed out the nature of reality as unstructured. The nature of reality is unstructured. That's another way to say open, and that's one thing that we call empty. But empty, unfortunately, is kind of it's not such a helpful word, but open. Any specific form is determined moment by moment. Form comes, manifests, it has its duration, and then it unforms. This means that we are left with a lot of possibilities in how to respond to any given situation. So what is being given right now? Well, first of all, I want to mention that if you need to move or stretch, because I'm going on and on here, please do. So this unstructured nature of reality opens us to the creativity of a vast, mysterious, generous universe. Sometimes it's hard to understand in conventional human terms the generosity of some of the things that we see going on all around us. What is being given? We don't always know. We don't always know the results of current situations. And because of that, a generous response, whatever that might be, whatever form that takes, is particularly important. Joanna Macy has talked about how important it is to, no matter what happens, what direction things take, what we can do is maintain a warm and open heart. Kindness, not to forget that. And that comes with strong commitment and practice. We never know what will be offered to us. Yesterday, I was looking, we had been meditating for many hours here, and I looked out and saw one tiny leaf come drifting down from a dripping sky. One tiny rosy leaf from the maple tree that we planted last winter. The maple tree was kind of like a toddler at this point in its lifespan. And it let go one tiny leaf. And in the way, in the middle of a sesshin, one tiny leaf is all it takes to stun the heart into opening wide, which is what happened. What a delightful offering. This tiny leaf. So generous. But we wouldn't actually usually say that was generosity showing. Not the way that we usually think about generosity, which is it is connected with a willed action by a person, by a human being. Like offering a hug when you see somebody is sad. Because if we were to say that the generosity of the trees, of the tree letting go that tiny leaf, it would be kind of anthropomorphizing what is actually a human habit. We often do that with the natural world. But it does certainly demonstrate the natural order of big mind, the natural order that we call ecology. The ecology of the natural world is complete generosity. So Longchenpa wrote, "So stay right here, you lucky people. Let go and be happy in the natural state. Let your complicated life and everyday confusion alone. And out of quietude, doing nothing, watch the nature of mind." This piece of advice is from the bottom of my heart. Fully engage in contemplation, and understanding is born. Cherish non-attachment, and delusion dissolves. And forming no agenda at all, reality dawns. Whatever occurs, whatever it may be, that itself is the key. And without stopping it, or nourishing it in an even flow, freely resting, surrendering to ultimate contemplation. We relax into the natural perfection, the complete generosity of non-dual reality. Maybe you see why I love Mushin. Maybe I'll read that again. So stay right here, you lucky people. So this is a guy, 14th century, 1300s. Stay right here, you lucky people. Let go and be happy in the natural state. Let your complicated life and everyday confusion alone. And out of quietude, doing nothing, watch the nature of mind. This piece of advice is from the bottom of my heart. Fully engage in contemplation and understanding is born. Cherish non-attachment, and delusion dissolves. And forming no agenda at all, reality dawns. Whatever occurs, whatever it may be, that itself is the key. And without stopping it or nourishing it, in an even flow, freely resting, surrender to ultimate contemplation, and relax into the natural perfection and complete generosity of non-dual reality, not separate. And notice that he doesn't say, and out of quietude, doing nothing, watch your nature of mind or the nature of your mind. He says the mind. I think that's important. He's referring to the vital view of an awakened mind, distinguishing it. The reason he distinguishes it is in order to clarify for us and point very clearly to the qualities of awakened mind so that we can recognize that. He distinguishes it from the personal self. And the thing that's so amazing about awareness is we can notice and distinguish between big mind and our personal mind. We can notice what fills awareness, sometimes called the objects of awareness, which are not actually objects. But we think they are. And when we're caught in this personal view, it's my view, my mind, me, mine. And that's where we get stuck in our worries and our attempt to control things and our suffering and confusion. You know, I'm struck as I go through my notes here, that's maybe everything that I'm talking about tonight, Shanae talked about last night. And very often that's true of the Dharma. There's only so many central principles to be observed, but they have infinite examples in our own direct experience. And what I might not recognize one day for myself, when it's pointed out, I then might recognize it the next day. So that's why we do this. It can be an offering, it can be helpful, but we all have to do it for ourselves also. So he says, cherish non-attachment and delusion dissolves. And whatever occurs, whatever it may be, that itself is the key. Every particular of life is important. Every little detail. When we have that clear seeing, that clear recognition of how important little things are, little details are, life takes on a sense of very rich meaning. And it's hard to describe to someone who feels things are quite meaningless, because that's a certain mood that can capture any of us. We can't be talked out of it. But details like that little leaf falling dislodged any sense I had at that moment of limit. Over a lifetime, we come to notice more and more when we are fixed narrowly in self-identity. You see all the many ways that we do it. We have habits. We have habits. We have sense habits. You know, what we see and what we don't see. Do we see only those things that are pleasing to see and not see what's not pleasing to see? Do we hear only what we want to hear and not hear what causes us suffering? I mean, that's really up right now with the political situation. I don't really want to watch Fox News. And yet I think it's my responsibility periodically to tune in, because it's a description of a complete universe that is as convincing as everything in the universe as I experience it. And that's important to reckon with. To let in all of the things of the universe. Not constantly, by the way. It's good to turn it off. Here we are in Sesshin, very healthy. But to be aware when we are tuning out. It's important to, notice our sense habits. I get things in the mail saying, be sure you notice if there's a gassy smell and do something about it, right? Or sewage, or toxic chemicals. So our sense habits dominate, of course. They're the equipment of being an animal. We need our senses. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But being really aware of what we're taking in is part of the generosity that this teaching urges us to take up. There are the five senses, the five physical senses, but then there's mind, which we are still, with all of our complex scientific investigations, we're still struggling to come up with a description of what is mind. Something that is so fundamental. And Longchenpa says something that is so fundamental, neither sense impressions, nor thoughts, nor whatsoever stirs from the spaciousness of pure being. This is also known as Dharmakaya. Neither sense impressions nor thoughts, nothing whatsoever. So that's kind of the aspect of spiritual life that is completely ineffable, magical, mysterious, the intuitive knowing outside of sense knowing. So just a little bit now about the natural world. How the natural world gives freely and generously, provisions us. The writer William Least Heatlin, some of you may know his work, writing about the desert, said the desert is stingy with everything except space and light, stone and earth. And then he goes on to say, from an environment that looks utterly sparse, offers the elements that make it up completely. There's always giving going on. So many life forms live in the deserts of the world with plenty of sun and not much water. Lizards, geckos, toads, jackrabbits, camels, snakes, spiders, meerkats, snails, cactus, creosote bush, Joshua trees, armadillos, mesquite, agave, etc. These are just a very few of the multitudes that live where there seems to be so little. And these are large. What about the coatings on rocks that are living organisms that are kind of like plant matter and maybe kind of like mineral matter? And then he says, and look at the natural order of woodlands, where leaves dry out and fall to earth seasonally, to become home to earth crawlers, and becomes nourishing compost that emerges in new life forms, and is the source of our food. When I first inkling of this process, I can't believe I was so old before I realized it, but I was at a sesshin and standing on the porch watching, it was about this time of year, watching the leaves from the big leaf maples fall. It was almost like a shower. I guess it was kind of a windy day. And they fell and lay thickly on the ground. It was kind of like the maple community was relaxing all its final holding on and releasing, relinquishing, all at once. It's kind of like a sesshin. We're all relinquishing and releasing all together. The floor of the forest, the floor of the mind, the heart. So that brings me to a poem by Marie Howe. If you have not heard of her, she's a lovely poet, called The Maples. So here it is. I asked the stand of maples behind the house, how should I live my life? They said, shh, shh, shh. How should I live, I asked, and the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam. A bird called from a branch in its own tongue, and from a branch across the yard another bird answered. A squirrel scrambled up a trunk, then along the length of a branch. Stand still, I thought. See how long you can bear that. Try to stand still, if only for a few moments, drinking light, breathing. The beauty of poetry is it's not didactic. It just takes us right into the experience. So there's so many kinds of generosity. Everything is realized as generosity when it is the direction we turn our heart and mind toward, which is one of the offerings of a Generosity Sesshin. It really it can impress us to remember to stop and say, what am I being offered right now? All things work together. And when we're paying attention, awaken us to the fullness of our life, however it is. Watching how everything works together in some mysterious way. There's one other wonderful gift of this practice, which is samu, which is really transforming the attitude about work which can so oppress us in our current culture, can be so alienating and meaningless and dry us up and turn us inward to some dry desert of a place, right? People look dramatic, but often people feel that way about their jobs. But Samu was about wholehearted engagement and doing one thing, which is also a very unique concept, to just do one thing and put ourselves wholeheartedly into it. We chant as we actualize our practice. Actualizing our practice is wholehearted engagement, no matter what. Making the bed, sweeping the floor, answering the door, greeting the person who delivers the mail. One of the other lines that we chant is, as we work, we benefit the earth. How are we benefiting the earth? Well, one thing that comes to my mind is we're paying attention to what we're doing and how it has an effect. So like if we're cleaning up and we're putting a lot of stuff in the garbage, that's important because it raises the question, what other choices do we have there? How could we benefit the earth? It's a very complicated question when it comes to garbage. So we look at everything that we do as work in relation to how it affects the health of living systems. As we work, we liberate all beings. We are mindful not to oppress other beings, whatever that means in a particular circumstance. And we also can notice, I certainly do at times, my holding back energies, not fully engaging, which would be much more helpful to others if I fully engaged. So there's a line in one of the chants that they do at Dharma Rain. It was translated by Terris, my life is the completion of meaning. That line completely stopped me when I first heard it, and it comes to me all the time. My life is the completion of meaning. Only when I'm wholehearted. Meaning is wholeheartedness. That's where the sense of meaning comes from. And the intimate, respectful, careful relationship with whatever is involved, is engaged. Having integrity with precepts, with what's important. Knowing what's important. Because we've taken the opportunity to really investigate what's important to live in a way that is caring and supportive of all life. And what takes us away from that? So this is all about the Bodhisattva vow. This vow to give everything away, everything that is not the kind of the universal life. In the evening we chant, or at noon, Shantideva is way of the Bodhisattva. What did we give it? In the evening? No. Sorry. It's such a beautiful description of the generosity as the very heart of the Bodhisattva way. Without generosity, there is no Bodhisattva way. We remain in a small tube, snake in the tube, and with the aspiration to live generously, wholeheartedly, openly, open-heartedly. We experience the joy of the Bodhisattva way and the discipline of the Bodhisattva way, which is also joyful. Discipline meaning giving life to learning, giving life to sharing life with life. So these are a few ramblings about generosity on this third day of our session. My wish, my heartfelt wish, is that there's something offered in all of this that can be helpful. Thank you for listening.
Can you?